I'm one person who is very passionate about families and about children. It is very interesting to find that mothers are so engaged and they've been a bit absent at home. So you find someone who is treated well, someone who is paid well, they will be better households than where the contrast happens. So it is very important to know the true identity of that person whom you leave your children with. You either take it or you don't. If you give the consent, we go ahead. If you do not give the consent, we don't go ahead and violate the persons. And that one leaves a gap or a question. Why are they refusing? Maybe because there are those things they don't want disclosed. There are people who do not disclose all the information. Someone might be a mental case, a depressed person, and they have not disclosed that they are on medication. So when this medication is over, they are bound to behave contrary to what we had reported. And we have to be responsible to give an account about our children.
Jody Rell once said, "At the end of the day, the goals are simple: safety and security." Well, today on My Journey, in our continuing series on child development, I host Victoria Mulwa, Managing Director, Arop Group Screening and Background Checks, who is helping us highlight the importance of ensuring child safety through proper screening of caregivers. Thank you very much, Victoria, for joining us today. So kindly tell us how the Arop Group Screening and Background Checks came to be.
It's quite interesting. I made a visit to an office of an investigative company, Hawkeye, and while there, the discussion about child care came up. Around that time, that is 2014 early, there were so many cases of households who had run away with children, who were mistreating children, and even who could clean someone's house. You go back and you find your house as nothing. At that point, Mr. Musa, who is the director of OCA, said we could assist them with the minor checks of house helps and domestic workers. And that's when he assured us that he would hold our hands and help us register Arop Group Background Screening Company.
So how would you describe your experience so far?
It's awesome. I'm one person who is very passionate about families and about children. And we have unearthed so much about the domestic workers, our households, and we've helped mothers, especially working mothers who have no time to be at home, who are busy also with academics, to make sure they leave their children, their jewelries, with very trusted households at home.
And talking of security, security has become a major concern, not only in the national level, but also in the international levels. There are also major concerns in the home, as you have said, of spate malnutritions and also abductions of children by caregivers. When we talk about safety and security in the home, especially for the child, what do we mean?
When we talk of security, is who are we living with these children? How safe? How are the morals impacted on them? What are they being taught, and are they safe? So those are the security issues whereby we make sure the people we leave our children with are people we can ascertain with the surety who they are, their identities, where they come from, and even where possible their relatives, we get in touch with them.
And you have mentioned about the people that we leave our children with, and we have said that there is a rise of children being abducted and and their rights being violated. What do you think are the major contributing factors to caregivers violating the child's rights?
It is very interesting to find that mothers are so engaged and they've been a bit absent at home. So you find the people we are leaving our children, our households, we are giving them a lot of work to do on our behalf, whereby they feel it's like a burden. We are throwing the burden to them. You also find that we are not paying them well. They are underpaid. Their remunerations are not good. so they are not happy. You also find with some employers don't treat these house helps well. So sometimes it's like a revenge for them to mistreat our children. There's also the element of peer pressure. The other house helps, you find when we are at our offices, they meet outside and they compare notes. There are those who teach them bad influence. And if someone is of bad, can be influenced, they'll go and practice what they shared. Like one can say, you know me, I have to make the baby sleep, so I'll give her this or that to make sure they sleep. So there's the peer pressure, there's the poor relations and not treating them well. And on top of it, not being available to assist them and to show them how they should treat our children.
And with that, do you think that also psychological issues may be affecting the caregivers?
For real, that is very, very true. Because these are human beings. They also want their future and their good life for their children. So you find how we treat them, and they see also how we are treating our children. Psychologically, it can have some impact. So you find someone who is treated well, someone who is paid well, they will be better house helps than where the contrast happens. I have cases of some friends who even establish some relationships where they even visit the families of their house helps. So the relationship, the friendship is very key with these house helps. They are the people who spend much time with our children when we are not there.
And it is said that prevention is better than cure, and hence bringing about a great individual to look after your kids, hence mitigating future losses, and hence background screening, which is not only standard practice in industries but also in the homes. Mm-hmm. Why would we say that it is important to do a background check, especially for our domestic workers past?
It is very important to do background check. First, you get to know the identity of the person. Many employers think by holding the ID, that is everything you need for that person. But I will prove them wrong. That person could have had several IDs, and if he is on bad intention, they will just leave it and go and get another one or go and use another one. So it is very important to know the true identity of that person whom you leave your children with. It's also important to know where has she worked previously, the kind of experience you need for your children. Is she someone who can sit with them and do homework with them? That will be determined by their academic qualifications. And more so, their relatives. Are they people, in case of anything, we can go back and get to know or find them in case of anything bad. So it is very important to do the background checks. You establish the true identity of the person, and then you get to know the person so that you establish a relationship.
And with that, we cannot limit ourselves that it's only the domestic workers who can take care of our children. There are also institutions such as daycare centers. Is it possible to perform a background check in such institutions, even with the employees?
For sure, we highly recommend even the daycare centers should know the people who are handling our children at those institutions. And therefore, they should also undertake background checks to know these people very well.
And you mentioned about relatives, and some families may resort to solicit services for family members as domestic workers. Is it possible, or is it important to have a background check for a domestic worker in such a scenario?
Currently, the family relatives who used to come and help us or work for us, I can say it's like a thing of the past. And if at all they are there, a background check may not be very necessary because these are people we know, our brothers, our sisters' children. We only emphasize on the background checks to make sure we get to know these people better. So for relatives who are rarely there nowadays, it may not be that important, although if need be, it should be done.
Well, on that note, we are now going to take a short break. Kindly do join in the conversation on our Facebook page, BrandPlus TV. We will be right back.
background check to be undertaken, the person being examined must give us consent. And then get some details about this person. Engage them in a friendly way. Get to know who are their relatives, who are their friends, where do they spend time. That way you'll be safe because you'll have somewhere to get more details in case of anything.
Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, this is my journey, and in our continuing series on child development, we are tackling the importance of ensuring child safety through proper screening of caregivers. Before we went for the break, you mentioned that indeed screening is important. So what do you look at when you're doing a background check on a caregiver?
When we are doing a background check, identification is very key. So we get the identity card. There we establish, is this person having several IDs? Because that one causes an alarm. Why would one have been issued with over 10 IDs within a span of 2 or 3 years? And then we also check on the police clearance certificate, which is very important. And we would advise all employers to ensure that they pay for these house helps to go and get the police clearance certificate. The importance of this is because the fingerprints are taken, and that is the only way, in case of a crime, you can have evidence of the person who committed it, unlike where there are no fingerprints. And that's why you find some courts, you go to courts and you've reported someone and there's lack of evidence, and that comes to an end. And then other than that, we get the information about the person. There's a form they fill in about their names, their parents, where they come from, their relatives, and their referees. This one, we go back and verify the same. Like the information written in the form we provide to the employee, that is the domestic person, we counter-check with the data which is held by the registrar of persons. The person they said are their parents, do they tally? If they don't, we start doubting. And then when we call the relatives or the people who have been put as referees, we somehow interrogate them to just try to establish whether the information given in the sheet is exactly and truthful. So we use the ID, the police clearance, and the information provided by the person.
And with regards to the referees, some of these things people can go ahead and even cook them. You can also tell someone to actually speak well of you. So how do you handle such scenarios?
You see, we try to put it in a way that you have been put as a referee, and we will hold you liable or will ask you to provide us information about this person in an event she commits a crime or she disappears. So you see, that way, if someone is not very sure or is not truthful, they will run away from it. And we also try to make sure it is in writing. Where we can, we really request the people to put it in writing. But one thing we've realized, when in the whole exercise, if someone asks some funny things, they decline. They don't sign the consent for the process to take place. So that one is a red flag that they had no good intentions at all.
And as you have mentioned, indeed background checks brings about a debate on privacy. So what legal boundaries should a background check for a domestic worker operate within?
For any background check to be undertaken, the person being examined must give us consent in writing and sign that they have given approval for the process to take place. That one gives us all the rights to investigate.
And I'll bring you down to another issue, which is health. Health is such a touchy issue, especially with the health issues of HIV and AIDS. And we have had documented cases where children are contracting the virus through their caregivers. So how do you navigate around it, whereas the HIV and AIDS Control and Prevention and Control Act 14, 2006 prohibits compulsory testing?
You see, all this is voluntary. The person has to be willing to sign the consent. So you either take it or you don't. If you give the consent, we go ahead. If you do not give the consent, we don't go ahead and violate the persons. And that one leaves a gap or a question. Why are they refusing? Maybe because there are those things they don't want disclosed.
So if indeed they refuse, then you later just leave them out?
Yes. And definitely, I'm sure even the employer ends it as that.
Well, when it comes to proper screening, there are families that may not want to go for the professional one. So what are some of the documents that employers would have of their caregivers?
I would advise they make sure they have the identification details. They get to know where this person comes from, the chief of the area, if possible, and also acquire a police clearance certificate. That one is very easy to get. And then get some details about this person. Engage them in a friendly way. Get to know who are their relatives, who are their friends, where do they spend time. That way you'll be safe because we'll have somewhere to get more details in case of anything.
And if I am a parent and I want to perform a background screen, of course I'm not a professional, what techniques can you give such parents?
Just make sure you befriend the person and you get to know more about them. Besides the identification, just get to know about their family, get concerned of if they have children, their children. And I have some interesting friends who have even paid visits to their homes. That way you create a bond and you are bound to get good results.
And indeed that rapport is important.
Very, very, very important. In fact, it's all about the friendship other than just the work.
And a clean record does not mean that it will remain clean forever. So would you advise a periodical check? And if yes, after how long should that periodical check take place?
I would say it is important to do periodical checks. Like the police clearance expires after 1 year, but where need be, after 2 years, 3 years, you can keep on checking.
And from your experience, have you had instances where you've had cases where you've had a clean check of a caregiver and then later the caregiver does something that intentionally jeopardizes the safety of the child or the children that are left under them?
They are minimal, but there are cases. You find someone could have been good, and then when you take them to your house, there are other households around. So they peer pressure, they share ideas, and they try to practice what their colleagues are doing. And that one can bring bad influence. There are others who are affected by moods. It is interesting or something not very confirmed. There are seasons of the year when people change. When it is very cold, some people may become a bit abnormal and misbehave, contrary to the clean report we had given. And also you find that there are people who do not disclose all the information. Someone might be a mental case, a depressed person, and they have not disclosed that they are on medication. So when this medication is over, they are bound to behave contrary to what we had reported. So on rare occasions, it does happen.
And to avoid this, what are some of the telltale signs that parents can look out for to this regard?
Be present and understand your person. If it's someone you are with most of the time, you are likely to tell when there are changes in behavior. Yeah.
And on that note, we are now going to take a short break. And as Victoria is emphasizing on parents, be present. We'll be right back.
Is a person who can take due diligence and monitor some of these things. Are they working? And are they working positive or negative for the kids? And then they make a decision. Prevention is always better than cure. It's important first to know the person you are dealing with, and then by the time you are installing the CCTV cameras, it's just to affirm that there is peace at home.
Welcome back, and this is my journey, and the ongoing conversation on our Facebook page is ensuring child safety through proper screening of caregivers. Well, there's this case of criminal involvement. There are people who have left prisons and would want to turn over a new leaf. Is it appropriate for one to hire them as caregivers, or is a background check appropriate?
The background check will always give the report of their previous criminal check. And that's why I talked of the police clearance certificate, which will indicate if someone has been convicted for anything. But we cannot condemn these people. I think we should use due diligence and assess them individually. And if one feels safe, I believe we should give them a chance. But once someone has been exposed, did they say it or we found it through the background checks? That makes the difference. Because there are those who are honest. They'll come and tell you, I've done this and I've reformed. There are others who will not tell you that. We will discover when we are doing the police clearance verification. So that one is not a truthful person and is bound to repeat a mistake. So it all depends on how the individual exposes what had happened and what reforms they believe they have done. And then we give them a chance.
And while doing a background check, there's also the issue on religion. There are some religions that are too extreme, if I can say. There are people who are also involved in cults. There are people who radicalize children. So how do you approach that as you do a background screen and check?
I think that one might be a little bit not that easy to come up with, because everybody believes they are good. And that's why the employer is a person who can take due diligence and monitor some of these things. Are they working? And are they working positive or negative for the kids? And then they make a decision. And that's why you find, not in any bad test, you'll find certain religions will prefer employing people from the same religion so that they also impart the children on the morals preached or taught in that particular religion. So it's all dependent on the person employed.
And in an effort to create a safe environment for a child, there are also new advancements like in technology. We have now CCTV cameras and nanny cams. Like in the UK, it is a must that you inform the caregiver that you have a nanny cam or you have a CCTV camera. How is the case here in Kenya?
I think we've not reached there here in Kenya, especially for the CCTV. The reason we put them is to be able to see what is not said. But the CCTV cannot replace background screening. Prevention is always better than cure. It's important first to know the person you are dealing with, and then by the time you are installing the CCTV cameras, it's just to affirm that there is peace at home.
With regards to this, there's also the issue on cost. Some parents may argue that a background screen may be expensive. Others may argue CCTV cameras may be expensive. Can one opt for one and leave out the other?
I would say the foundation is very key. The background check is important because you'll know the person you are dealing with. What will it be? It will be of no use to have the CCTV cameras and come and find your child is not at home or something has been done to the child. It will not pay, other than if you make sure you bring the right person for that child. They can complement one another. but they cannot be used to substitute background checks.
And one may already have done a background check, and maybe the caregiver comes out and does something that jeopardizes the safety of a child. So how can the parent address this in the court of law?
A crime is a crime. If something has happened, unless it was accidental, you report it, and I'm sure the law will take up from there.
So how is the AROP group screening and background checks redefining employment?
In fact, it is bringing sanity in the employment, because you find people have become too fake. The other day we had the fake doctor in Nakuru, and we have so many with fake certificates, people who have never gone to school. You get a certificate where someone graduated on a Sunday. Quite interesting. You get people writing they work for these companies which do not exist. So it is very important to make sure the person you intend to get is the right person, and that way you also get value for your money, because they will be capable of committing or doing the duties which you intend them to perform. It is a must, if I may say, for now or for the future.
And what new things should we expect from the AROP group screening and background checks with regards to security?
It's just to develop a database whereby we are looking for a time whereby you'll just be producing your card. I've been screened by AROP group, and it will be like a clean report that is a good person. So we'll intend to have database for various categories, for security guards, for house helps, and even for the corporate employees, because you find someone commits a crime here and moves to another company in the same industry, and they are not detected. So they transfer problem from one place to another, and the database will be very useful for employers.
And before we wind up, how would you describe the embrace of background screening here in Kenya?
It is catching up. In fact, many people are like, what is this? And they are seeing the importance of it. We are privileged to have been contracted by Uber. They are our clients. We vet Uber drivers before they are engaged. We have other corporates like Telecom Kenya, Sintel. So it is catching up. In fact, it is becoming like a must, because there is a difference between human resource and background checking. They hire, but we go that extra mile to make sure we fake it out, anything that is not right.
So what advice do you have for parents out there with regards to hiring of caregivers?
Our children are our jewelries. It's a noble duty, godly, and we have to be responsible to give an account about our children. We must be present, and we must get to know the people whom we are leaving the children with. Know their true identity, know their character, know where they come from, and let's befriend them. Because unless we do that, even at our corporate levels, we will not be able to perform well. But when we know there's peace at home, there's trust at home, we will be very, very fruitful even in our offices. So a background check is a must.
Well said. Thank you very much, Victoria, and I do wish you all the best.
For more, you can get us on our Facebook page, AROP Group, one word, or you check our website, www.aropgroup.com.
Thank you very much.
It was awesome. Thank you.
A parent's or a guardian's role is to ensure a child's safety. That has been my journey. My name is Ngendo Mwangi. Until next time, remember that safety is as easy as ABC. Always be careful. Keep watching BrandPlus TV.